All right. What's up? I apologize in advance for all the traffic noises. I'm recording in the middle of the day. There's a busy street right behind me. Okay. So we're in chapter 20 of the Power of Awareness, talking about righteousness and sin, and we might get to chapter 21. I'm not sure. But there's some interesting stuff in here. So let's get right into it. So he says that righteousness is defined as being the consciousness, or sorry, the consciousness of being what you already want to be. And so I looked it up. He goes on. Sorry. So righteousness is the consciousness of being what you want to be already, and that's the true meaning, and not. Yeah, he says you're not. Now, moral codes have a lot of religious precepts. And it's very important. And the Bible he quotes a lot of verses the Bible includes on righteousness. The Bible says it includes a lot of verses on righteousness. I looked up the definition of righteousness as far as the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is concerned, and the definition that the book said was that it's a state of harmony established in consciousness through the right use of God-given attributes. And it doesn't say what God-given attributes is, but I just wanted to establish that that definition, because in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, that's the closest source to Neville, and he may have. If somebody wants to make a comment on what Neville's sources were and why they, or how they got to that conclusion, then I can do research on that. But the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary was written. I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier, but it was written in the 1932, I think, by someone else who interpreted, obviously, the Bible in a different way. And he started this whole movement. You know what, let me look it up right now. So what's Metaphysical Bible Dictionary? Okay, by Charles Fillmore. Okay, and he started the Unity movement. I'm gonna check out the Unity Church and see what they believe and stuff. We'll see, because I want to have people around me that can study this stuff. Anyway, okay, so we're talking about righteousness, and then he quotes a bunch of stuff about righteousness from the Bible, and then he introduces sin, and he says that it's a logical contrast of opposites, and it becomes significant in the psychological meaning of both righteousness and sin. So he says that sin is missing the mark, and in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, it says word for word, missing the mark, which I was like, finally, something that is outside of Neville that corroborates what he's saying. It's important for me to find out other sources of people saying the same thing, because if one person is saying one thing without any support or any reason, because Neville talks about the how and the why as opposed, and introduces the law of consciousness, or law of assumption, but there aren't any other sources. And so this was the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary was Charles Fillmore, another guy. They may have known each other, I don't know, but it was written in 32, and this book was written in like 20 years later. Let me look that up actually now. The Power of, and I've looked this up. See, I looked this up multiple times. Okay, 52. I was right. It's exactly 30 years before. Coincidence? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Right. So moving on with the definition that the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary gives, is falling short of divine law, and the divine law is all these things: the law of God, the law of being, and it could be the same thing: the law of God, the law of being, and the underlying principle of every man's being. Okay, there's being again, and the universe, and then sin is wrong thought or wrong thinking. So it's interesting, because the definition of sin is not what a thing. It is a lack of a thing. So it is when you miss the mark, that is sin. It's just kind of interesting to think about. I guess it's not that. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay. What's next here? Oh, right. So later on, it says that not exercising dominion over your states of mind, different states of mind, because that's what the earth and other creatures therein mean for the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Okay, and it goes on to say that it is first and is redeemed by going into the silence. When I read that, I was like, hell yeah. Sin is first and redeemed by going into the silence. And I don't think, I didn't look up what going into the silence meant on Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. I'm gonna look that up, right, see if I can find it. Okay, so I did just a quick search. Going into the silence is associated with meditating, communing with the deeper self, being more spiritual, just like withdrawing from the senses, and yeah, associated with the spiritual. So cool stuff to know. All right, chapter 20. Let's see. He goes on to say, so he's talking about here in the actual text. Sin means to be missing the mark, and so righteousness is being what you want to be, and then by righteousness can you be saved from sinning. So by being what you want to be, you can be saved from missing the mark or missing your own mark, which logically makes sense. Okay, there is a, okay, so saved from sin, and he sets an example about what sin would look like, and so he says that a person living in poverty could believe by some religious or philosophical activity that he can be saved from sin, but if he continues to live in the state of poverty, then it shows that the religious or philosophical activity was useless. So that is sin. And on the other hand, he can be saved by righteousness. Okay, yeah. So that's delivering from sin is righteousness, or using the law of assumption. So he makes the direct comparison that righteousness is using the law of assumption successfully, or assuming what you want to be. Okay, so going back to the example, because that doesn't change his state. Sorry, going back to the example, the religious or philosophical activity doesn't, it is something external that they do. It doesn't change concept of self. And then he talks about scribes and the Pharisees. So he's basically saying what not to do. In this paragraph, sin is this, and this is what sin may look like. And then also be wary of being like the scribes and Pharisees. And so I looked up Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, and the scribes and Pharisees mean people governed by the outer, or by rules and customs, or the letter of the law. And then, but he says that the rules and customs, what? Oh, okay, sorry. So letter of the law was from the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Here, he says that the scribes and Pharisees are the people influenced and governed by the outer appearance, the rules and customs, by society, and by the vain desire to be thought well of by the men. So things that don't make sense. Chasing the wind. Okay, unless the state of mind is okay. So same thing. That is fake righteousness, I think is what he's saying. Okay. So yeah, external righteousness, or the fake righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, right? Yeah, is exceeded by being what you want to be. Again, going back to the law of assumption, assuming consciousness of what you want to be, or the identity of what you want to be. Okay, did I say anything about that? No. Okay. desiring things. Okay, so this chapter is about, or this paragraph is about things. So he says, I'm just going to read it verbatim. One of the greatest pitfalls in attempting to use the law of assumption is focusing your attention on things, on a new home, on a better job, on a bigger bank balance. This is not the righteousness without which you die. What? This is not the righteousness without which you die in your sins. Okay, so this is the righteousness that you die in your sins. I don't like the double negative. So things are the righteousness that you die in your sins with. The scribes, and it's kind of well, so he made a comparison here with talking about the scribes and Pharisees being governed by outer appearances, rules, and customs, and then what other people think. And then right here, he says the same thing. One of the greatest pitfalls is focusing on things. And so not just what other people think on the outer, it's like external things. So he takes it even deeper. He takes it even a level further. Okay, so he goes on to say righteousness is not the thing itself, is the consciousness or feeling of being what you want to be, already having what you want. Okay, and then he quotes Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God. And I think I looked up the definition of kingdom of God. Yeah, so kingdom of heaven is the orderly adjustment of divine ideas. And it's attained, so you can get it by establishing in one's mind the consciousness of the truth of being, and second, by adjusting one's outer life to truth. So in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, they get very, the text gets very conceptual. It's not really, so they use words like truth and being a lot. But that's what the MPB says. Kingdom is attained by establishing in one's mind the consciousness of the truth of being, so just awareness, being, and then adjusting one's outer life to truth, true truth, real truth. What else do I do here? Okay, and then he ends the chapter with the kingdom of God is within you. Righteousness is the awareness that you already possess it all. So it's the same thing as creation is finished. It's found in consciousness. Yeah, I think he goes into more deep. No, okay. I don't think he goes into these ideas in more detail in chapter 21, but I think we'll go on to free will. So the first idea is what should be done. Oh boy, here we go. Another one. Another interesting thing. So the question is often asked, he probably gets it a lot. What is to be done? And this is everywhere. What's to be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and the realization? The answer is nothing. Just if you guys remember the principle of least action, the law of assumption, according to Neville, just is. And so everything follows the law of assumption. It's like a tide that everything, or a current that everything flows, that it controls everything. And so he's saying, I'm just gonna be literal here for a second. What should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and it actually happening? Nothing, because the law of assumption it's the current, okay, and consciousness, it makes up everything. So that's how things happen. So go over anything. Okay, no. Okay, it's a delusion that you can do anything to aid the realization of your desires. So this is why. Okay, well, I'll say that. You think you can do something and you want to do something. Where are we at? Oh yeah, you can't do anything to aid the realization of your wish except by assuming. So that's just he goes on and on and on. You can't do nothing, and then he brings up free will. The only free will you have is by assuming what you want, and then the events that come are a realization of that. That's what he says. So where's that? Your assumptions. Okay. So yeah, all that is done by you happens. All that befalls you, all that is done by you happens. So you don't make it happen. It's the law of assumption is working. So your assumptions, conscious or unconscious, direct all thought and action to their fulfillment. So that is a fundamental fact right there. a tenet of Neville's teaching, is that law of assumption happens. It's like the law of magnetism. You can't do anything about it. It just is. And so the most we can do is leverage it to our advantage by changing our identity, concept of self, in order to make the world that we want. Okay, let's see. So what's the next idea? Oh, right. For those who aren't familiar, I drew like a little diagram in one of the videos of Feeling is a Secret. So I'm just gonna go over this really quick for anybody who's not. Anybody who is, you can just skip it. So basically, you don't have free will over events, and that leads to you are free to choose your reactions of the events, and then that leads to the events which you don't have freedom over, but you are free to react, and then establish the concept of self. Kind of what I was saying. So this is how you can picture it. You don't have free will over events. You do have free will over how you feel and how you react, but you have to be mindful first, and you have to increase your power of awareness to control your reactions. It's not easy, at least I don't think. Okay, free will to understand the law of assumption. Okay, free will means the freedom to select any idea you desire. All right. Yeah, it's. Okay, and then a popular phrase that I like: I can of mine own self do nothing. So it's not, well, the events, you don't have any control over the events, but you do have control over the assumption that you have and the reaction to those events. Okay, I've said that enough. Okay, so the Father, he establishes some fundamentals, which I go over right here. The Father refers to God. So the fundamentals that he establishes here are, that's kind of interesting. He establishes the fundamentals after the commands and stuff. What are we here? Okay. So using this verse, the Father refers to God. So Father is God, and then God as I am by God is defined as I am by Neville. Since creation is finished, the Father is in there. So the Father I am is never a position of saying I will be. So everything exists, creation is finished, and the infinite I am can speak only in the present tense. Okay, so those foundational things are set here. So God I am, God is Father, I am is God, and then creation is finished. So let's see, what was the last one? I am can only speak in the present tense. Yeah, that's the self-definition. Okay, so he goes on with the first sentence of the verse. Not my will be done, but thine be done. And so, oh, sorry, that was the infinite consciousness. Okay, that was another fundamental thing. So the Father's will is I am. Until you realize I am, you will always not be. Okay, so yeah, same thing. And then the last one is so I will be is a combination, is a confession that I'm not. And the Father's will is always I am. So until you realize that you are the Father, your will is always I will be. So he's saying here with this last sentence, until you realize that you are the Father, that you are God, that you are I am, your will is always I will be. So he's saying let's see, let's actually write this out. Okay, so what I was saying was this last sentence here. Over here, until you realize that you're God. Pretty big statement here. So I want to know exactly what he's saying. Why? He's saying that until you realize, sorry, I'm flipping so much. Until you realize you are God, there's only one I am. Your infinite self is that I am. Your will is always I be. So he's saying something else, because he's talking about the infinite self also. So there's only one I am. That's been established by him already. You are the Father. You have to realize that you are the Father and your infinite self. So he's saying you're the Father. You're also God, and I guess in some fashion, you as a person, he's saying, or I am, but he's also saying that I am is the infinite self. Infinite self. Okay. So that is what I am is. Okay. I don't think we're just gonna power through it, guys. We're just gonna power through it. All right. In the law of assumption, your consciousness of being is the Father's will. He's saying your consciousness of being is the Father's will. I didn't put that in there. But the Father's will is your will. Your consciousness of being is the Father's will, and what Father's will is I am. The mere wish is the my will. Without this consciousness, my will must be. Why am I figuring this out just now? Okay, let me try and understand this here. In the law of assumption, your consciousness of being the Father's will, the mere wish without this consciousness is the my will. Oh, okay. So the my will be done, not thy will be done, but not my will be done, but thine. Okay, so he's talking about the verse up here. Not my will, but thine. So you have to. He's saying that by assuming the consciousness of being whatever you want, that's the Father's will, because you are the Father, and you are God, and you are also I am in some way, or you are at least the Father. He's saying, or until you realize it, you're always going to be I will be, and not I am. Okay, so you must be in order to do. So this is a fundamental thing, a fundamental fact that he establishes here. You have to be in order to do. So when he talked about in the last chapter, I forgot to say this at the beginning, but the chapter 18 where he talked about be doers, essentials. Okay, chapter 19. So the essential points, the desire, and then the what is it? Physical immobility. That's 2. 3 is to experience an imagination what you want to. This is the method. This is not actually what you need to do, because the law of assumption happens regardless. So this is a method that he's putting forth to take advantage of the law of assumption and that current. So let's see. So that this stands alone. This, as far as I know, this is something that you have to establish as truth, and I think it's beneficial to do that, even if we can't find the exact definition of or reasoning of how or why. You have to be in order to do. This is not only limited to manifestation, but it's limited. It applies to changing like your own life. You have to identify yourself as you have to change your identity. You can't do things that aren't your identity. It just is not going to happen. If you want to do something, or if you do something, it comes from wanting to do it first. You have to have a reason to do it, and a good way to set that foundation is to have a concept of self. So you have to have a foundation of, okay, this is why I do the things that I do, because I define myself in this way. So when you do something like that, you are committing to that action, and you're saying that you are this certain way. And that's just like a human thing. It's called the commitment bias. So all that to say is that that's what I agree with this foundational fact. I don't have any problem with it. You have to be in order to do. So if you're following me, if you're with me, then you have to first be mindful of your concept of self and then change it. That's it. Because the law of assumption makes things happen according to assumption. So if you assume you are a certain way, then you are that way. Where are we? Concept of self. I already said that. Yeah, gotta be. Okay. Same thing, concept of self. Okay, events, yep, you're being of powers. Intervention. Okay, this is a cool idea. You have the power to intervene, and that's change your reactions. If you were to remember the drawing that I did earlier. Right. In fact, to change your future, deny the evidence of the senses, assume the feeling of the rush. Okay, so that's it. Deny the senses. I mean, you don't have to deny the senses either, because if you believe that in what you assume, then you're going to deny the senses. Like, what is this? This is not reality. If you're believing that I am is the basis of reality, you can tap into I am by assumption, then you're going to deny the senses anyway. So don't like deny the senses first. Although if you're doing the method, so many caveats. If you're doing the method described about in chapter 19, where you get, what is it? The assume an immobile state to shut down the senses. If it's easier for you to focus, then that's fine, but that's not necessary. Okay. And as much as your assumption is creative, okay, your assumption increases your assurance. Higher level of being, there it is. So every time you assume, you're assuming a higher level of being, you're getting closer to God, is what he's introduced also in an earlier chapter. Your soul longs to ascend. Okay, and as long as it's a lovely one, it'll make your downward way swifter. Wonder where you got that idea. I don't know, but let's just take him at his word here. Just as the lovely assumptions, okay, harmonious atmosphere, hard and bitter atmosphere. Okay, so it makes sense. To assume bad things, you're gonna have bad things happen to you. Invariably, that happens. And if you assume good things, you're gonna be positive. Yeah, you're gonna be positive no matter what happens. And I believe I believe that you can change your reality by assuming. So whatsoever things are pure, okay, you have something. Oh, okay. So that's important to say, that he, instead of just reading, he establishes a command here, I think, or a qualifier. So, okay, he says, inasmuch as the assumption is creative, so it's A, creative, and B, forms an atmosphere. So he doesn't use the words form an atmosphere in before. This is the first time, I think the only time that he used it, but it's just to connote the fact that it surrounds you and can, if you want to remember, before he said it crowds out all the ideas if you are focused on one singular thing. Okay, so and then higher level of being, I think it goes, yeah, okay, we already went over that. Okay, and so that means with that you can also like it's transitive in that you can assume that of other people, as well as yourself claim others their divine inheritance. And the divine inheritance is, even though it's a new word, it's just assuming lovely, let's see, noblest, happiest, highest concepts. Okay, and that's the divine inheritance. He goes into this. This reminds me of a lecture, but I don't remember it off the top of my head, where we are like it's our he does say earlier in the book where it's our destiny to ascend to higher and higher states, although the form of that is variable and infinite. We can choose what form that takes. Maybe regardless, he said that the one destiny you have is that your like everyone's destiny is to ascend, and eventually everyone gets to the level where they realize that they are the Father, according to Neville's own experience, and a few others around him. His brothers see their good instrument. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, this just goes along with assuming a noble and a happier concept. If you see someone in struggle, like I go when I'm at the street and I see, you know, a beggar or like a cripple or something, like I automatically just assume like, nope, she's not that way, or he's not that way, or he has a happy family, or he's not sick or something like that. And that's just, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't hurt to assume that, so I go ahead and do it. All right, chapter 21. What is the next thing? Okay, so the mechanics here. Let's see. You win by, hold on. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. See, they're good. Show the highest, and others. Their assumption they're good. Prophet and healer. Cool. So we're going to be prophets and healers by assuming that other people have the best for them. Win by assumption. Well, you can never win by force. Assumption. Okay, right. So this paragraph is where he talks about the mechanics here. So let me go over it totally. You win by assumption what you can never win by force. An assumption is a certain motion of consciousness. This motion, like all motion, exercises an influence on the surrounding substance, causing it to take shape of, echo, and reflect the assumption. So the assumption causes everything, makes everything reflect it and take the shape of it. Change of fortune is a new direction and outlook, merely a change of an arrangement of the same mind substance, which is consciousness. And that was established in chapter 1. Everything is conscious, everything is made from consciousness, and so everything is consciousness. Assumptions, yeah. Okay, cool. Mind substance. So this is an interesting term. He calls consciousness mind substance. So if you guys have ever seen the Reddit user, all is mind, same thing. All is consciousness. That's all it is. And he's taking I think what he's taking is ownership of your ability, everyone's ability to manipulate consciousness by what you think and what you assume. So that's what I think all is mind means, at least according to this and my own guesses. All right, where? Okay, I didn't put any transitions on chapter 22. The reality of your assumption has its being in complete independence of objective fact. That's an interesting sentence that I will go over here soon. Whoa, we're not going to go over this. Okay, let's go over one chapter at a time. That's really quick. Basic concept of self. Yeah, that's don't forget that's the most important part, because it starts with concept of self, like change and creating your world. Okay, which must change take place in yourself. Okay, so here. The whole sentence says, so he's talking, let me give the context of the sentence. So he's talking here, if you change your life, you have to start with concept of self first. And then outer change, everything else external is not enough, like to be part of, to make change externally, you know, setting up a nonprofit, donating to whatever cause, that's not enough. It starts with concept of self. That's what you can, that's what I took from this outer change, blah, 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 is not enough. You can take what you will from what that says and share if you want, if that's like radically different from mine. So I'm open to viewpoints. Okay, cause goes deeper, change yourself. Okay, you must assume that what you want to be, and continue, because the reality of the assumption has its being in complete independence of objective fact. Now this, to me, is a little confusing, because the key phrase here is the reality of your assumption. So the fact that your assumption, or the beingness of your assumption, whatever you assume, has its being in complete independence of objective fact. And objective fact is, I think, too broad of a word, because objective fact, I mean, the law of assumption is an objective fact. So this, I think, can be misconstrued. I think what he means is objective fact, like what you and I can perceive. So again, this is I think what he's saying here, because this sentence strictly contradicts itself. But what I mean, what I think the meaning is, that assumption has an effect on the objective world, on what we see. It's not the other way around in any way. Completely independent. Okay, and it will become real when you persist in the feeling of illusion. Okay, persisting in the assumption, same thing. Feeling will come after. When you know that. Okay, yep, same thing. It'll come after. The mere accidents will be logical and inevitable effects of the assumption. So I think that's what he's saying here when he's saying that reality of assumption is completely independent from objective fact. Okay, the important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will. Yep, choosing assumptions, no power. Yep, okay. What portion? All right, we're done with chapter 1, guys. Holy moly, what a slog that was. I'm gonna fix the transitions on chapter 22, and then I'll release that video, and you'll see it in a few days.